this video, I discuss a framework to determine what product to build and how to use data to help do so. Let's say you're working for a company and you're trying to decide what product to build, and you're convinced the data would be helpful. But how do we use it specifically to determine what product to build? To start, let's think about this in three categories. Category 1 is the customer value. In other words, the business impact or return on investment from buying and using the product. Category 2 is business viability, or the end-to-end process for delivering customer value while simultaneously meeting your business goals in terms of revenue, profits, or other business goals that are either strategic or more specific, for example, improving retention or upsell or cross-sell. Category 3 is technical feasibility. Given the above two goals and constraints, is this possible from an engineering or technical perspective, given our capabilities? And if so, what is the level of effort? A product needs to meet all three criteria. Otherwise, you'll run into situations like this. A $10,000 bed that has a built-in GPS tracker. Technically feasible and potentially viable for the business, but not valuable to the customer. A teleportation device that allows anyone to safely, instantly travel anywhere in the world. Valuable for the customer, but not technically feasible. Or a borderline indestructible smartphone. Valuable for the customer and technically feasible, but at a price not viable for the business because it's cost prohibitive. So how do you avoid these types of situations? Specifically, what can we do to make sure we are successful across each of these three categories and build a successful product? And spoiler alert, here comes our good friend data to help us with this. Specifically, what we're going to do is conduct a combination of internal and external research and compile relevant data. We'll ask targeted questions that help us make sure that the data we receive will improve our understanding across each of these three categories. 1, customer value, 2, business viability, and 3, technical feasibility. This will ultimately help us make a decision in terms of what product to build. Now, before we jump into it, I will call out that this is an iterative, interrelated process. For example, customer value impacts business viability. Research and data informs ideation of product ideas. Even assuming we have perfect data and know exactly what to build, which is rare, it's best practice to build software in an agile, iterative fashion, release incrementally, and get user feedback on an ongoing basis. Why? You guessed it. Because among other things, this process gives us additional data to pressure test our assumptions and further improve our product. For customer value, here are some questions to ask. 1, what problems are the users trying to solve for? 2, what is the existing process for solving the problem? Ideally, observe. Have the end user screen share their process. For each stage in the process, what are the inputs and outputs? What is the impact if a step or the entire process does not get completed? 3, how frequently does the problem come up? 4, if it's a significant problem, why hasn't it been solved historically? This will help provide context for the opportunity and will inform business viability in the next step. And finally, what are the customer's core success metrics? How are they determining whether they've effectively solved the problem or realized other value? For business viability, we can ask, does the product and related end-to-end process for delivering customer value meet your business goals? In terms of revenue, profits, or other business goals that are either strategic or more specific, for example, improving retention or upsell or cross-sell. But before we can do that, we need to take a step back and understand the business more broadly. What is our business model? How are we making money and what is our strategy for doing so? Do the problems faced by the users as determined by our interviews align well with our overall strategy and fall within our core competency? Would pursuing it require deprioritizing or pivoting away from other problems? What are the barriers to entry associated with the market? For example, investment, capital, regulations or permits, intellectual property, and so on. What are the economics associated with the product? What do we think the cost would be to create the product and where we would need to price to break even and ultimately turn a profit? What is the market size? From there, we can think about the go-to-market strategy. For example, how do we intend to distribute the product? Via sales team, different types of marketing, a channel partnership, and so on. What do we think the end-to-end go-to-market process will look like? For example, who is the buyer and what is their relation to the end user? What do we think their willingness to pay is for a product to solve their problem? How will we generate leads? What does the opportunity qualification process look like? What does our sales demo, collateral, and offering look like? How are we pricing the product? What is the overall duration of the sales cycle? What other stakeholders and influencers are there? Finally, we need to assess the technical feasibility of the product. What are the main technical work streams involved in solving this problem and building this product? Of the different things we can build to solve customer problems while maintaining our own business viability, is this possible based on our capabilities? And if so, what is the estimated level of effort necessary in terms of development costs? Why? What's driving those? Have others solved these or similar problems, whether in our industry or similar ones? What does our tech stack and our architecture look like in our current state? How will that need to change? If it's not currently possible, what are the changes that would need to happen to enable this? For example, macro-level technological developments, hiring additional developers or tech team members, etc. In addition, which of these decisions would be two-way door decisions that would be difficult or even possible to change down the line versus one-way door decisions that could be easily changed or reverted? These are some examples of questions we want to ask regarding technical feasibility. Hopefully this is helpful in illustrating examples of how data can be used to help determine what product to build. In some cases, whether a product should be built at all. This is because in some cases, not building a product will save significant amounts of time, money, and other resources that could be better invested elsewhere.